Starmie is a Pokemon I've had requested to do over the years, and with the holiday this weekend, what better time to see how the star-shaped Pokemon does in a solo run of Pokemon Blue. The rules are on screen but also in the description. We all know Starmie is a great Pokemon in Generation 1. Overall, it has great stats. A high speed and high special stat, that's all you really need in Generation 1. We also know that it has a great move pool TM-wise, getting access to the water moves, the ice moves, the electric moves, and psychic to boot. And we also know that its level up learn set is non-existent because it's a stone evolution. And of course we know about its mega evolution introduced in Legends ZA, and its design is... well, what is this thing anyway? How would you describe it? I mean, the internet has already trashed this thing, and I don't think I need to add to it. There really isn't much to talk about in the early game with Starmie. One thing I will say is that I'm not going to be doing the minimum to Brock. I'm going to take on the junior trainer in his gym before I take on the rock-type specialist, and I'll get into why shortly. As for Brock, no intro for him this week. His rock ground types are double weak to water. They have trash special stats. Starmie has a great special stat, and you know how this ends. As I head towards Route 3 in Mount Moon, it's time to get into why I took that optional battle. I did a lot of early game testing with Starmie, and only having Water Gun, Tackle, and Harden at your disposal, and I guess Bide after defeating Brock, it's just not good enough, and I found myself struggling when I got to Cerulean. I was like level 12, maybe 13, due to being in the slow level up group, and I was getting bodied by the rival in Misty, even when trying to use Bide strats. It doesn't help that our next big moveset upgrades are going to come after gym leaders, one of which that has a type advantage against us. And just to do some comparisons, Gyarados, who I ran last week, it's also in the slow level up group, but aside from also having monstrous stats, it starts with Dragon Rage, a guaranteed 40 HP of damage for anything that might give it trouble. Bite, which is a decent physical move for this point in the game, and Hydro Pump as opposed to Starmie's Water Gun, which even if Gyarados didn't have the monster stats that it does, Hydro Pump would still hit relatively hard due to being 120 base power. When I used to do those Sanqui runs on the channel, I remember Misty Starmie got an upgrade, because it had Hydro Pump on its learn set. Well, that's because starting in Generation 6, Starmie actually gets it as a starting move, and one of the settings I used in those randomizers was to use Generation 6 learn sets. If only we started with Hydro Pump today. But let's get back on track. In Mount Moon, aside from grabbing the rare candy, I'm also going to battle this hiker for some extra experience. After defeating the super nerd at the end of Mount Moon, Starmie is almost level 15, and while I could have battled an extra optional, it wasn't needed. I grabbed the Dome Fossil, and I'm going to take on my rival once I enter Cerulean City. I have to 4-hit Pidgeotto with Water Gun, thanks to a crit on my second, and it's only able to hit me with one of its 2 uses of Sand Attack while also throwing in a Quick Attack. Since I now have Brock's badge, which I forgot to display via my stream deck at the time of this run, and can badge boost my attack, and conveniently just leveled up after defeating Pidgeotto, I can freely set up to +6 with Harden on Abra to max out my attack stat and just use Tackle on the rest of his team. Harden maxing out my defense will also lessen any damage I take from Rattata, since it only has all normal moves. But I need my luck to hold up against Bulbasaur. After my opening tackle does about a third, it hits me with Leech Seed. Great. My next tackle hits, but crits, which bypasses any stat boosts. Gotta love that Gen 1 jank. Thankfully, Bulbasaur isn't using its best move in Vine Whip, opting for Tackle. And thankfully that Sand Attack from Pidgeotto doesn't come back to bite me, as my next 2 tackles hit to win the battle. Nugget Bridge isn't too much of a problem for Starmie. While I do have to 2-shot a lot of things, the biggest threats arguably, aside from sand attacking Pidgeys, are probably Zubats, with Supersonic always being an annoying move and the super effective Leech Life at their disposal. I'd say aside from battling the Elixir Hiker just to give myself more PP and Water Gun, to get through the 2 trainers before the last with 2 Oddishes and a Pidgey before Bills, the biggest time sink in this section is having to heal after every 2 or 3 battles, because as we saw earlier, Starmie's worst stat is its HP stat, and having to open the menu and use multiple potions sometimes can add up. The battle against the last before Bill's is actually close. The first Oddish was able to get me down to half HP, the Pidgey thankfully didn't go for Sand Attack, and I get a nice crit from my opening tackle on her last Pokemon. Unfortunately, I also miss a tackle and get down to 9 HP in this one, but Starmie still has a flawless run to this point. What do you say we just jump straight into Misty? For this battle, I've taught Bide, but I'm not going to use it just yet. Instead, I'm going to set up 3 Hardens on Staryu for some badge boost to knock it out with Tackle quicker. Although the defense boost might be counterproductive against Starmie, because we want it to do as much damage as possible with Tackle, so that Bide can return as much damage as possible in retaliation. And this battle is actually closer than I expected. My first use of Bide, I get a 2-turn Bide which doesn't do much to Starmie in retaliation. My next use of the move is a 3-turn Bide, but due to Starmie missing 2 tackles, it does even less than my prior Bide. But with my final use of the move, we see 2 critical hits from Misty Starmie to bring me to 11 HP, and that's exactly what Starmie needs. It returns back the damage double, knocking out her star, earning us the second badge. The real prize is the TM for Bubble Beam, an immediate upgrade over Water Gun. I make sure to teach Starmie this move right away. From here, it's straight down to the SS and to battle the rival. I'm going to be skipping Body Slam because Starmie can't learn it. As far as the rival goes, I didn't heal before the battle. That should pretty much sum up most of it. I'm able to 2-shot his first 3 Pokemon, and I don't take a Sand Attack from Pidgeotto, which is great, but things get close against Ivysaur. I still don't have a good answer for this thing and won't until we reach Celadon, where I'll be able to grab a move like Ice Beam or Psychic once I open up the way to Saffron. You can see me alternating between Tackle and Bubble Beam, both of which aren't doing much, and Ivysaur brings me down to 8 hit points, before Bubble Beam gets a clutch critical hit to finish off his Grass-type starter. Since I was close to leveling up, I decided to take on the gentleman who guards the rare candy on my way out. Defeating his Growlithe will bring Starmie above a damage rounding threshold, and grabbing an extra rare candy to bring my total to 3 to this point could be useful if I get stuck against Lieutenant Surge, who's normally a pushover, but today he's going to get his time in the spotlight. Voltorb is his lead. I have to 2-shot it, but thankfully see Screech instead of Sonic Boom. Pikachu is next and Bubble Beam easily 1-shots it, but now we have to talk about the real problem, Raichu. Bubble Beam does what looks like a third, and Raichu unleashes a Thunderbolt, and with a critical hit, it 100-0 Starmie for the first reset of the run. I make it back to Raichu in the next battle. It opens with Thundershock instead of Thunderbolt, which does about a third to me, and inflicts paralysis, giving Raichu the outspeed. Raichu goes for Thundershock again, bringing me to low yellow health as Bubble Beam connects, doing the same to it, and Surge, who can end this battle with another attack, uses an X speed. Starmie doesn't get caught in paralysis, and Bubble Beam finishes off his ace, earning us the Thunder Badge. But more importantly, the TM for Thunderbolt. A battle that I hadn't even thought about until this moment in the run is against this junior trainer, commonly referred to as the Rapping Lass, because she likes to status you with her Oddish and then just use Rap with her Bellsprouts until you lose. I don't have anything great to use against her. I choose Thunderbolt since it has the upside to cause paralysis, even though Bubble Beam technically just barely edges it out in power thanks to Stab. I have to 4-shot her lead Oddish, who not only poisons me, but is able to bring me down to nearly half HP, and I still have 3 Pokemon to contend with. Against the following Bellsprout, since it's not going for Wrap or any other attacking move, only Growth, I switch to Tackle, which is doing significantly more damage, and I'm able to 3-shot it. I stick with Tackle against the second Oddish, and my second use of the move gets a critical hit, allowing me to 3-shot it as well. But I have next to no HP for her final Bellsprout, but like with the first one, she's just spamming Growth instead of attacking. Starmie is able to 3-shot it with Tackle, and barely barely squeak out a win in this one. There's another junior trainer in Rock Tunnel with 2 grass types that I have to deal with as I make my way to Celadon City. She has an Oddish and a Bulbasaur. This Oddish knows Sleep Powder, which it lands on Starmie. It then slowly chips me down with Absorb, while also slowly healing back to green health. After I wake up, I'm able to bring it back down to low yellow health, but Oddish goes for Stun Spore this time, paralyzing me. I don't get caught in paralysis and I'm able to knock out the Oddish with 2 more tackles, but now I have to deal with Bulbasaur. Turn 1 it goes for Growl, lowering my attack and weakening my tackle, and at this point I switch to Thunderbolt, which scores a massive critical hit bringing Bulbasaur to red health after it hits me with a Vine Whip, but another Vine Whip on the next turn finishes me for our second reset. In the next battle, I'm able to make it by Oddish with no status ailments and green health. My opening Thunderbolt paralyzes Bulbasaur, although it never gets caught in paralysis. The electric move is able to 3-shot the grass type starter. I finally arrived in Celadon City. I immediately head to the department store to buy super repels, sell off items, and grab the TM for Ice Beam. I'm also going to head to Saffron and grab the TM for Psychic, and Starmie's endgame learn set is nearly complete. I'm not going to face Erica at this time. Instead, I'm going to go through the Rocket Hideout and face Giovanni. I have Bubble Beam for his 2 rock types, and Stab Psychic for Kangaskhan, which scores a critical hit to one-shot it. I'm going to head to Pokemon Tower afterwards and face the rival. With Starmie's overhauled moveset, I have super effective damage against 4 of his 5 Pokemon. Only the Kadabra is able to damage me. After Pokemon Tower, I'm going to head to Celadon before I make my way down to Fuchsia City. Starmie now has a slight level advantage over Erica's Pokemon, and I'm hoping Psychic can at least one-shot her lead. Victory Bell is first. Psychic gets a critical hit to one-shot. Perfect. Tangela is next, and without a crit, Ice Beam gets the one-shot. Vileplume is last, and once again Psychic gets a critical hit to get the one-shot. Alright, it's now time for the Run's TED Talk, and I might get comments debating this, I might not, but it's time for the age-old question, should you teach Starmie Surf? And I feel like there was a lot of back and forth regarding this years ago, like in 2024. I remember Scott had said how you can still get a great run with Starmie without Surf, and from what I remember, he was right. Granted, he also played Yellow, and there's a big difference between the gym leaders I have yet to face in Blue compared to Yellow. I'm just going to cut to the chase though. I am going to teach Starmie Surf today, but not just yet. I don't need it until I face Blaine, although Surf could have probably helped out against the Juggler's Pokemon in Koga's gym. I have to 2 or even 3-shot them with Thunderbolt, and I can't badge boost my special since I don't have Blaine's badge. I don't need an intro for Koga this week. Psychic decimates his team, although I do have to 2-shot both Weezing and Muck. Starmie is pretty underleveled for facing Koga, but that's the slow level up group for you. Time to head down to Cinnabar Island. Since I have a type advantage against Blaine and he's quite bad in Red and Blue, it makes sense to face him next. And as I make my way through Cinnabar Mansion, there are a few vitamins in my path I can pick up and dump into Starmie as I make my way to the secret key, along with 2 rare candies and the TM for Blizzard. I usually grab this with any Pokemon I teach Ice Beam to, just to have some extra oomph in the league if needed. And I think I might need it with Starmie, because it's going to finish the game at a pretty low level. Not quite Mewtwo low, but close. The battle against Blaine goes as you would expect. I just leave my cursor on Surf. I have 1-shots against the 2 first stage Pokemon and have to 2-shot their evolutions. And the run from here on out is going to be smooth sailin', or smooth surfin'. The only place left to go to advance the plot is Silphco. I'm going to be skipping the 10th floor candy, heading straight to floor 5 for the card key, and then face the rival. And the battle isn't difficult. Pidgeot's opening quick attack does get a crit, which is a bit annoying, but I don't see Sand Attack from the bird. I can 2-shot it with Thunderbolt, 1-shot Gyarados with Thunderbolt, 1-shot Growlithe with Surf, and my opening Surf does over half to Alakazam, who then disables it. I get lucky though, with Ice Beam just getting the freeze the following turn. I take it out, but then I press A too quickly when Venusaur comes out, leaving my cursor on Ice Beam and doing about 2/3. But it retaliates with Razor Leaf, which finishes off Starmie. I make the same mistake again in the next battle choosing Ice Beam. I should be using Psychic. It's also super effective, but also gets a boost from Stab. Thankfully Venusaur goes for Leech Seed instead of the auto-critting Grass move, and I can finish it the next turn. Giovanni, I don't have much to say here, just leave your cursor on Surf. There's no point to show this battle. Now let's face Sabrina. I feel like if you could hold out on teaching Starmie one of its 4 special moves on its set, and came into this battle with Tri-Attack, while also keeping Harden for badge boost, it would make Sabrina go much easier, because her Pokemon are frail on the defensive side, but have great special stats. Because of this, I'm going to have to at least 2-shot them. Things start out terribly though, as Kadabra's opening Psychic drops my special. I'm still able to 2-shot it and the following Mr. Mime with Surf, but my own Psychic doesn't one-shot Venomoth. I expected to see Stun Spore, but it goes for Leech Life, dealing pathetic damage. I knock it out and move on to Sabrina's ace Alakazam, and this battle took forever. I drained all of my PP of Ice Beam trying to get a freeze, which I didn't get, and you see how little damage it does to this thing. I switch to Thunderbolt when I'm out of PP, which does get paralysis on it, before alternating between Surf for stab boosted damage and Psychic to try to get some special drops. Eventually, Starmie is able to score 3 critical hits in a row to get the knockout. The battle against Alakazam itself was 32 seconds, and if that were on 1x game speed, that would be over 2 minutes for just one Pokemon. Giovanni is the final gym leader. Just leave your cursor on Surf. Before taking on the rival though, I'm going to use a few rare candies. 3 in total, to go from level 42 to 45. The 2 additional damage rounding thresholds help out in this battle, and overall it's similar to the battle at Silphco. I have to 2-shot his lead Pidgeot with Thunderbolt, and from here I can 1-shot the following Rhyhorn with Surf, 1-shot Gyarados with Thunderbolt, 1-shot Growlithe with Surf, get a lucky freeze with my first use of Ice Beam on Alakazam and knock it out over 3 turns before moving on to his ace Venusaur. I remembered for this battle to just use Psychic, which brings his ace to low red health. It retaliates with Vine Whip, which is fine. I want to see that over Razor Leaf. Vine Whip does get a massive critical hit though to bring Starmie to 39 HP. I take it out the next turn and it's off to the Pokemon League. It's a straight shot through Victory Road. I'm not going to grab the extra rare candy, and I'm not going to pick up any optional battles. I'm just trying to push these boulders as fast as I can. I don't plan on using any additional rare candies until after Lance, so what do you say we just jump straight into the league? Lorelei and her ice types are up first. I'm going to have to 2-shot all of the water types, and possibly 3-shot the Jinx. I make it by the Dugong unscathed. Cloyster wastes my time with a 4-turn Spike Cannon as 2 Thunderbolts also take it out. I was worried Slowbro might try and set up with Amnesia, which would prolong the battle, but it chooses Water Gun, and it's also a 2-shot. I was correct on my assumption that Jinx would be a 3-shot, as Surf is doing about a third. It goes for Double Slap and then Body Slam, thankfully not paralyzing me as I move on to Lapras. My opening Thunderbolt scores a critical hit, bringing it to about a quarter. It uses its own Body Slam, thankfully not paralyzing, as I finish it and move on. Psychic one-shots all of Bruno's Pokemon, we can move on. Psychic is going to continue to be my move of choice against Agatha, and unlike Bruno, it has to 2-shot her ghosts, but it does have one-shots on her Arbok and Golbat. Even though her first Gengar and Haunter have a chance to attack me back, Agatha just uses a retroactive Super Potion on them, and the only one of her Pokemon who gets an attack off is her final Gengar, which just goes for Toxic. Lance is last. I have Ice Beam, I have Thunderbolt. I also have Surf, which is super effective against Aerodactyl, and Starmie outspeeds all of his Pokemon. The only shocker in this battle is that Ice Beam doesn't one-shot his second Dragonair. I must have got a low roll. And I also don't one-shot Dragonite. Dragonair just hits me with a weak Slam, and Dragonite misses Hyper Beam, which could have dealt some real damage. Before taking on the champion, I'm going to use 1 rare candy to get to level 53 above a damage rounding threshold. I'm also going to teach Blizzard in the place of Ice Beam for more power. Now, let's get this run across the finish line. Pidgeot is first. I open the battle with a Blizzard, which scores a critical hit to one-shot the bird. Alakazam follows and I continue with the Ice move, hoping for another battle with a Lucky Freeze. I don't get it and Alakazam heals back all of its lost HP with Recover. I switch to Surf, which gets a critical hit, as Alakazam stays pedal to the metal with Recover before switching to Psybeam, which does about a third with a crit. And honestly, after I knock it out, I don't believe there's going to be anything that holds Starmie back from here. Rhydon is 4 times weak to Surf, so it's easily taken out. Gyarados is 4 times weak to Thunderbolt, and it has the same fate. I do have to 2-shot Arcanine with Surf, which makes me think Venusaur is not going to be a 1-shot with Psychic, and if it were to use Razor Leaf, it would take me out from my current HP. I do level up prior to Venusaur, which will help my damage, but you know what helps even more? Getting a critical hit, which one-shots his ace, and Starmie has done it. For my real-time folks at home, Starmie finishes the game with a real-time of 38 minutes and 45 seconds at level 54, with an in-game time of 2 hours and 29 minutes, getting it in the S tier by my rankings by a minute. I did this run the same day that I recorded Gyarados's, and ran this one second, and I'm glad I did. This was a fun run, and I shouldn't have put it off for this long when I originally did a run in late 2023, but scrapped the footage. I really need to get around to doing the legendary birds. Those are 3 Pokemon I've put off for far too long, along with Mew. Although with Mew, I just haven't had the motivation to run it after the race over a year ago. I was pretty mewed out, but I think it's time I run it under my own rules in Pokemon Blue. As always, thank you guys for the continued support on the channel. Special shout out to the channel members, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Take care.